football clubs.
Crystal Palace play at Selhurst Park. They've not always been in the Premier League, so are they a big football club?
Subscribe now to see how they compare with other big football clubs.
Crystal Palace do not have major titles to make them comparable to the biggest clubs in England. Whilst the port is notable, they are not near the top of the all-time league attendance list. This puts Palace at the lower end of a chart illustrating the biggest clubs in the current Premier League according to success and support. We've run a range of trophies. Although Crystal Palace have not yet won any major honours, they have won the second division twice and the first ever third division. They have been to 2 FA Cup finals and won the Full Members' Cup in 1991. Third place in the league in 1991 was not enough to qualify for Europe, but they did play in the Intertoto Cup in 1998.
We support our local team.
Crystal Palace spent their first period in the league in the second and mostly third divisions, so attendances were never going to meet the top flight average. But we cannot say these figures are so bad for a club in the third division and in its league infancy. After the war, attendances gradually improved, even though they were in the fourth division at the end of the 50s. Palace's promotion to the third division saw impressive numbers, not far from the Division 1 average at the time, and their rise through the divisions saw stable attendances. A big jump in numbers occurred when Palace were finally in the first division, and the club were able to compete at numbers close to the other teams there for as long as they kept their place. Figures did fall again after relegation, and we can see ups and downs consistent with their rises and falls in the league. The most difficult time was in the 80s. They were only in the second division, but support fell to its lowest point in the club's history during this period and would not recover until they were back in the first division. In the 90s, support again followed league finishes, but was fairly stable even when in the second division. Since Palace's time in the top flight, they've maintained a stable crowd. However, this is an age in which other clubs are building and filling new stadia, and it's unlikely that Crystal Palace would be able to do the same.
Palace have beaten the best.
Going for the domestic double, Liverpool was stunned after thinking they had made a successful late comeback. An even later equaliser, and then a winner from Alan Pardew, prevented a Liverpool-Man U final. Once at the final, Palace did not disappoint, leading twice in one of the cup final classics. Although Ian Wright gave us a glimpse of the striker he would become, the final ended with honours even, and United won the replay, which did not live up to the first game.
We've had some really classic players.
Crystal Palace's best ever players can be taken from their peak periods at the end of the 70s to the start of the 80s, and their best ever period a decade later. There are also stars from the Premier League times, with Wilfried Zaha thought to be the club's best ever player.
More than 10 years straight in the Premier League. How about that?
Crystal Palace won the third division in its first season, and they remained in the second division for 4 seasons, albeit with low to average finishes, before relegation into the third division south. They immediately had a tough time of it, but stayed there for the rest of the interwar period. They did have strong finishes in 1929 and 31, but did not seriously push for promotion again until 1939. After the war, things did not improve, and Palace had highly fluctuating finishes going into the 50s. They entered the 4th division when it was created, but did not spend too long there, experiencing their second ever promotion in 1961. In fact, they managed to achieve improving finishes until 1965, including promotion to the second division in 1964. Once they were in the second division, they had good finishes and even performed well enough to get promotion in 1969. In the first division, it was not so easy, and from 1973 they slid back into the second division, then even went straight down to the third division for a few years. But they did not languish there for too long, and promotion back to the second division soon saw them win the second division title in 1979. Their time in the first division was quickly cut short, and Palace stabilised into a second division side in the 80s, but they were on the up in the 90s. Promotion to the First Division was achieved in 1989, and after appearing in their first FA Cup final in 1990, they had their best ever league finish in 1991. Third place, along with the Associate Members' Cup. This level of achievement could not be kept up, however, and the club slid back down. Whilst they won the Second Division again in 1994, Palace were a club who tended mostly to be in the Second Division, but with short appearances in the Premier League. But in 2013 they were promoted again and have spent their longest time in the top flight since. Crystal Palace do not have trophies to rival the biggest clubs in England, but do have their share of divisional championships and the full Members' Cup. They were unlucky not to make it to European football in 1991 due to the setback to English football post-Heysel, and would be very happy if they could make it to the Conference League. Palace have had good support right from the start and have at times had the average top-flight attendances, but it's been more than 30 years since they were last close to it, and it is unlikely they'll get near it again. They have had good cup runs culminating in 2 classics, whilst they're at their peak, but lack big matches over their entire history. Whilst Palace have a good range of players over the last 50 years, and some have gone on to play for bigger clubs, most have not been at that level. Crystal Palace's history reveals they spent the earlier half of their existence in the lower divisions. They have over time found their place between the first and second divisions. In recent times, they've been able to maintain Premier League status, but no one would be surprised if they were to spend some time again in the second division. Accordingly, they're unlikely to ever be called one of England's
big football clubs.
Are Crystal Palace the biggest club in South East London?
Please comment below. Like and subscribe to Big Football Clubs to watch videos as they're released each week.